It's been a little while since we've done one of these, Ty. It's always fun to see you. This is Hog Roundup with ESPN Arkansas's Ty Richardson. That's Ty Richardson. You probably know him by now. I'm Picture Nation's Evan Kamiko. Ty, it's been a pretty hectic 2 weeks since the last time we spoke. Arkansas loses to Missouri. KJ Jackson looks great. We'll get to him in a little bit. And then the big news breaks that Sunday, the following day. Arkansas hires Ryan Silverfield out of Memphis to be the next head coach of the Razorbacks, the 35th in program history. And then we've had a whirlwind of the week. Yesterday, the introductory press conference with him and Hunter Yurachek. We'll dive into all of that momentarily. We'll also talk some basketball as well. Arkansas takes down number 6 Louisville in the SEC ACC Challenge. A really fun week, I think, for Arkansas fans on the Hill. But let's start with what everyone wants to talk about. Silverfield's press conference. What were your big takeaways from that?
Well, initially, Hunter Yurachek talked about the finances, was then asked about the finances, not was willing to necessarily give that information, pointed to the guys that they would bring in out of the portal, pointed to the coaching staff they would hire, and those names have reportedly come out according to Matt Zenitz of 24/7 Sports. So I think a lot of Arkansas fans are in kind of a wait-and-see mode for what that looks like and what it could lead to in terms of wins and losses. And then for Silverfield, so there was almost 2 different press conferences, in my opinion. You had the scripted one, where he was just kind of, it was kind of not clunky, but it was just kind of like, okay, this is whatever. And then when you and Trey and others asked him questions, it was very like authentic, quick fire, talks a lot of energy. A lot of times ADs will go the complete opposite way where a program was. Sam Pittman, slower, methodical, thinking about what he's saying. And not that Silverfield doesn't, but it's like boom, 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 boom. That doesn't necessarily mean that this team's going to win 8 football games next year. But it's definitely a different approach than we've had in the previous 5.5 years or so.
That's something that I think I took away really big as well, because it's such a drastic difference, in my opinion, than what Sam Pittman was personality-wise. You have him. I loved when I asked him about connecting with the Arkansas community. He was like, heck, I wanted to go throw on the overalls and something, get the fan base invigorated again, because it feels like Arkansas really needs that. You know, obviously he wasn't going to go out in the basketball court and say, Alabama sucks, so does Georgia and Mizzou. Like, he wasn't going to do that, so I respect him for being true to himself, but I loved seeing him interact with the fan base, because I think that's really, at the end of the day, who he has to win over. It's no secret that, Ty, he's got an uphill battle to fight. Look, when the hire got announced, I think a lot of Hog fans weren't thrilled because it wasn't the sexy name out there, but when you look at his resume, look, he has a great record against Golish and Morris. I believe he's 5-0 against those 2 names and one other guy that was kind of up for some other jobs as well. I saw that tweet circulating, but it's an uphill battle, and I think in his press conference, he did everything he needed to do unscripted to start winning the Arkansas fan base, and I think a big reason for that is getting back Quincy Rhodes Jr. as well as KJ Jackson to come back in 2026.
Yeah, 2 big pieces. Don't know if they're going to add someone. I'll be curious to see if there's a portal quarterback that they add in addition to the guys already on campus. I think a lot of people are wondering about that. I know I personally am, and just what that looks like for him. I would guess that's going to happen because, Evan, correct me if I'm wrong, the 17 signees he got this week, there was no quarterback on that list, right?
Correct.
So it would just lend you to believe that that's going to happen. And so to go off that, there's a lot of cliches and things that are said in initial press conference. Guys will buy in and stuff, but we mentioned the reported hires earlier. I think my biggest thing is, like, what talent can you get out of the portal? And let's be clear about something. While Arkansas's football team under Sam Pittman was, I don't know, mid-20s, high 20s, maybe a low 20 a year or 2 in recruiting, which is like 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th in the SEC. They actually had pretty good transfer portal classes in terms of ranking. So I would love to see if Arkansas could somehow inch into the top 10, because right now your recruiting class ranks outside the top 50. I highly doubt many of those guys are going to play this upcoming season. But could you get guys that are going to have a vital impact on this team next year? And can you evaluate in the short amount of time you have between now and January the 2nd?
And the head hog, he didn't shy away from that either when he was asked about that. Hey, you don't have SEC experience. You know, can you come in and turn the program around in a year? And he said, yeah, that's the expectation right now. he shied away from saying anything about a rebuild. He did not really use the words rebuild too much in this. He's like, we're going to win, and we're going to win on day one. Arkansas football is going to set the standard for what an SEC football program is going to look like. Again, that's all talk right now. We don't know what's going to happen until the SEC opener next year if they can truly compete with some of the top teams in the conference that you're going to have to face next year, because the schedule is daunting yet again, and we'll get there in a little bit. But I thought it was really interesting that he said that, you got to build out of the portal. And I think, to me, his portal class is going to tell us a lot about what this team's going to be next year. Because the way college football works today, and Ty, I'd love to get your opinion on this too, you can build a team in a year in a portal. Does it always work? No. Look at Purdue. They did not do it to perfection. Look at Indiana. They did. So two different sides of the coin, where Silverfield's core, yeah, he wants to develop and get young high school kids 20 to 30 in a class, and that's great. But you've got to build this foundation for this program because of today's day and age of college football in the transfer portal, in my opinion.
Yeah, and just look at like the Heisman Trophy winners as of late. Joe Burrow's the one that comes to mind for me, and thinking about what he was at Ohio State, then comes down to LSU. Those are that's the position you kind of think about first: Mayfield, Murray, and then you go at a smaller scale. I say smaller scale. Then you just look like at overall classes. For example, Ryan Silverfield had 70 new guys in Memphis, a combination of walk-ons and also transfer portals. So there is going to be a major overhaul of this roster, regardless if it was Sam Pittman or Ryan Silverfield. That's just what it looks like year in, year out. And just as you said, that's how you start building, not necessarily your program, but that's how you build year one into why kids are in high school in Arkansas and elsewhere that want to come here. And those other portal guys or guys that are on another campus are like, okay, maybe this might be a good place for me in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Yeah, and look, again, it is possible to do it. Can he do it? I think a big thing is, what about on the defense? Look, I liked what he said. We've got to own the ball and take the ball away. Be good with the ball on offense, take the ball away on defense. Any Arkansas fan knows they struggled this year in turnovers, struggled in getting sacks when your name was not Quincy Rhodes Jr., who had 8 sacks this past year to lead Arkansas, and he'll be back in 2026. So I think it's really interesting that he's like, we got to reshape the identity of the defense. And again, Ron Roberts, who's Arkansas's reportedly going to hire per Zenith of CBS Sports, all the other publications this morning were coming out with the same thing. They've got to start that early. And again, the portal class is going to be really important. What'd you like about his defensive philosophy that Silverfield wants to bring?
I think the turnover aspect that you mentioned, just how he framed it and explained it, how it's something, again, when they start practice, that's going to be preached over and over. It's not just like before games. We got to get some turnovers. We got to force it. It's going to be taught over. And let's be clear about something. It's not like Sam Pittman and Bobby Petrino weren't stressing holding on to the football and stuff. For whatever reason, it didn't work. Like Sam Pittman got a lot of the blame, but Petrino's last 2 years, I mean, it was bad. And I'm not just piling on. I'm just pointing it out. In Arkansas, since 2020, the worst team in all of college football, FBS wise, and hanging on to the football. And you think about how many close games you've had recently that have gone the other way because of those turnovers. And what he said is this is why we won a lot of those games, because we did force those turnovers, i.e. what happened in Memphis, Tennessee, when Arkansas came to town, 32-31. And so those little things, when Arkansas is at a talent deficit most time, in some cases a coaching deficit, you better have guys that make plays and put yourself in situations. This Alabama defense, for example, Kane Womack has gotten some flack at points this season, but defense, they forced some of them. I can't remember where they rank in the SEC, but I think it's either at the top or near the top. And that's why Alabama has won so many games this fall. And it's as they often do, is because they force turnovers. And a lot of times they take it back for touchdowns. Don't know if you're going to have that vintage defense in Fayetteville, Arkansas, but you have to have an opportunistic one if you're not going to have just guys that are lined up, blue chippers everywhere. You got to make some things go your way on the turnover department.
I know they say that, turnovers are a little bit lucky, but you got to create your own luck. And I think with Silverfield in this defense and Ron Roberts, if and when he is officially announced as the Arkansas DC, you got to start there. And again, I love that you mentioned it. It's like the first thing we see every year is the running backs holding the ball, the offensive coaching staff hitting it with the little thing, and we all see how it turns out. And that is why Arkansas probably went 2-10 this year. And here we are with the new coach in town. But let's talk a little bit about the new coaches who are rumored to be coming, and I'll read them off the list right here. so that I don't look like an idiot while I'm trying to read them off of my mind. This is a CTV show. We have some fun on the web here. So we've already talked about Ron Roberts, former Florida defensive coordinator. He's reported to come to Arkansas in the same role. On the offensive side, they plan to hire Memphis offensive coordinator Tim Cramsey. He was on Silverfield staff in Memphis in 2022, had stops at Marshall, Sam Houston State, Nevada, and Montana State. Also, Larry Smith, the former Memphis wide receiver coach, is going to look to Fayetteville and come here as well to be on the staff. Memphis senior offensive analyst Nick Matthews is also going to reportedly join the staff. We've talked about Roberts. And finally, David Johnson, running backs coach. He was the running backs coach and recruiting coordinator at Florida State since 2020. And Silverfield said yesterday, I can't tell you who I'm going to hire, but it's going to be guys with experience, guys with me from Memphis. And he's like, the fans are going to be really excited about this staff. Where are you? Are you excited about this staff and the names that we've listed off?
Not really. Now, let's be clear about it. Just because they don't blow the doors off when announcing their names doesn't mean they're not good football coaches or the right fit here. But in terms of what Hunter said yesterday, it doesn't line up. Now, they might have some other guys they're going to reportedly hire that have more of a pizzazz, have more of a name to them. But those first four you just listed off don't. I mean, it's three Memphis guys and at least a Florida and Auburn SEC defensive coordinator. But again, I don't want to make too much out of the wow factor because it doesn't always equate to winning or what leads to winning. Just initially, not that big of a jump start. Am I wrong on that, Ev?
No, I don't think so. Again, and it goes back to the Silverfield hire in general that look, he's got the record 50-25. He's been in the NFL as an offensive line, assistant and coordinator, not really a coordinator, but more of like a, run game coordinator, offensive line coordinator, not an actual coordinator in the NFL. So I can be clear so no one at home confuses that. He hasn't been a coordinator at the college level, but he's been the head coach at Memphis the last 6 years. It wasn't the splashy hire, and I think that's kind of just following suit. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing that it's following suit. But again, the names that you're going to bring over, if you saw an Alabama name or a Georgia name, an Ohio State name, an Indiana name, then you'd get a little bit more excited. But I think the reality is that, look, he's a proven guy. He's coached at every level from high school to college. So the guys he's bringing with him, they're not going to be flashy if they're from Memphis. But you've got to get behind it because that's kind of where they're going, and it might turn out to work. Nobody thought that Kurt Cignetti would really be successful at Indiana coming from James Madison, bringing his staff from James Madison, and here we are. Here I am as a fan. I always love to sneak Indiana into these, but, I think that's just the reality is, it's okay not to be overly excited because he's been hurt so often. When Bobby came back, everyone was really excited, and now we saw what 2 years of Bobby's offense was, and it was boom or bust. At times, they looked like the best offense in the country for a quarter. And then at other times, you sat there asking yourself, man, why can't they score in the third quarter? Why are we watching the same game play out over and over with this offense? Until KJ Jackson came in the third quarter and looked really good against Missouri. But that's not here nor there. So I think you have a really good point to stay cautiously optimistic about the names that are coming in and being reported.
Because you referred to something that's important. Arkansas fans have been hurt so many times since 2012. The last prominence has really been 2011. And you get yourself up, and I said this on our show this morning, Evan. If you go back and listen to Chad Morris and listen to that hype train, and then I went back and listened to Pittman, like you saw Ryan Silverfield tear up when he was discussing his twin daughters. Pittman cried at his press conference. Everyone was hyped. It's like, this guy wants to be here. And I don't want to discount Silverfield wanting to be here because that's important. I think anyone you hire, you do want them to be the head coach at Arkansas, regardless if they think it's a stepping stone job or they can be here the next 20-something years. I just don't want to overhype what I heard yesterday, like so many people love to do each time a new head coach is hired. So it's like it's a balance. And I'm kind of like, what I said, what I was telling someone earlier is it's not that I want to be overly negative, but I also don't want to be overly positive. It's very much in the middle. It's like he flipped 4 in-state kids. He had a solid press conference, I guess. And now his staff's just kind of, it's whatever. What can you do in the portal? And then what can you do the first big game in Salt Lake City, Utah against the Utes. In that North Alabama game, yes, it's the first home game of the season, Razorback Stadium. But, Evan, what can you do? And against one of the better programs that's not talked about enough in college football.
Absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see. And I just want to see him be like on all fours, doing drills, what he's talked about. Do what you've preached. If you're preaching on day one, you're going to be in the depth, in the trenches with some of these guys doing drills. I'd like to see that in spring practice. Be a man of your word, and we'll see what Silverfield has to do. But, Ty, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, there was another press conference in there with Hunter Yurachek and a lot about finances. We'll break that down on Hog Roundup. That's coming up after the break. Stick around. We'll be right back. Back here on Hog Roundup with ESPN Arkansas's Ty Richardson. I'm Evan Kamiko. Ty, let's talk about the second part of the press conference yesterday. Probably something that everybody wants to know. It's the finances. Hunter Yurachek, how are they going to make this Arkansas program from a resources standpoint competitive in the SEC? I believe beforehand, Arkansas was 14 out of 16, give or take. And now Hunter Yurachek came out yesterday and said, look, I can't tell you specifics. Maybe we'll have to FOIA it for specifics. But what he could tell the media was that they will be in the top half of the SEC. What do you make about the financial situation and the backing for Ryan Silverfield's program?
I think I questioned the reasoning a little bit, just because like the Michigan State donation today, was it 401 million? I think I have that number right.
Potentially, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, and so like I believe that number is correct. Let's go off that.
Right.
So that like gets fans, whoa. And if you had a number, if he said we've raised this much money and we're hoping to do this much, then you kind of like initiate and not for the common fan. Like I know he got torn up in Little Rock for saying what he said about if every whatever person gave. You're just not going to do that. You've got to get people with a lot more big pockets to do it. I know that's not always fair. It's just kind of where we're at right now. And that was my process. He obviously chose to refrain from giving a number, and whether it's FIOA, as you said, or it eventually comes out, it's important to know that it's important, I think, for fans to know that it's not just talk, it's action. I'll give Silverfield credit, like we did a little bit earlier. There was some action this week. He didn't just say stuff. He flipped 4 in-state kids, and he mentioned the relationships. He got KJ Jackson and Quincy Rhodes to be all in and come back. So you need, I think, something like that. It doesn't have to be tomorrow or on Sunday or Monday, but hopefully in the coming weeks, you actually get a number that's associated with Arkansas football. So you have an idea. And I know he wants to keep that in-house. Listen, you went 2-10. You don't have you like the competitive advantage to me is you're just behind in a lot of different areas. And I don't think other schools knowing what number you have is going to put it in. It can put it in a place where you're at another competitive disadvantage on that.
Is it sad? That's exactly where I was going to go with this and say, I just find it funny with the competitive advantage that at the end of the day, there is no competitive advantage, because the competitive advantage should have been on the field when you brought over Taylor Green, who was one of the best quarterbacks. And, well, we all know how that ended up working out, where he could have been maybe a second or third round pick, and now he might not even be drafted in the NFL draft. And you lose the competitive advantage because everyone can beat you. Like, there is no competitive advantage until you start to win again, in my opinion. So that's funny, because that's exactly where I was about to go with that and ask what you think about this competitive advantage.
I don't know. I don't know if there is one, like you were kind of leading into. You're never going to be number one in this league in terms of revenue produced or the rallying, the fundraisers and that. And that's fine. Arkansas's won before without it. Again, and I say without it, let me be clear. You've won before not being the top tier, top dog of the most money. And now you've just got to find ways to counteract the money you're going to go up against. And we brought up turnovers earlier. There's various things you can do. You got to evaluate really well. You've always got to do that at Arkansas. And hopefully Ryan Silverfield, who's built up a bunch of relationships, it sounds like, in the state. I mean, Quincy didn't Quincy say that he was the first guy to offer him?
Back in 22, I believe.
Yeah. And so that's an awesome story. And hopefully there's more out there like that of kids in this state and maybe in surrounding states that Hey, they were looking at Memphis. Now they're going to take a look at Fayetteville because they like this guy that's the head coach now.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that was really fun and interesting to hear from the players when we spoke to them really quickly after. And I thought it was interesting, too, that C.J. Brown was at the press conference but wasn't there to say, I'm all in, like KJ and Quincy. So I don't know. I'm not going to read too much into it. But anything else before Yurachek? Because we're talking about the league itself. We've got to talk about the Lane Kiffin drama. Anything else on the Yurachek side?
Yeah.
Because we can dive into the numbers and all of that, but a lot of the writers do a much better job than us TV people and radio people who sit here and just talk about the general ideas of the whole thing.
Last thing, I know what Hunter Yurachek said about his first call and last call. Do we really believe that? That the actual – and I'm just telling you as a very what's the word? Not a conspiracist, but I just like – I don't always when ADs say things about coaching searches, this is not a Hunter Yurachek thing. This is just in general.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe it a lot of times.
Yeah.
And you don't have to necessarily list out everyone he vetted, but that maybe it was, but I don't know if I'm buying that.
Yurachek said it went from 30 to 9 to 3 to 2 to Ryan Silverfield left on the board for the head coach at the University of Arkansas. The last thing I want to ask, and then we'll talk about Lane Kiffin in a second, the all-in mentality, the new mantras and stuff as my camera is geeking out on me. Are you in for the all-in slogan? Is that something you like, or are you kind of sick of slogans like let's just see what happens on the field?
I think it's just coaching stuff in general. Brett Bielema's was uncommon. Chad Morris's was hammered down. Sam Pittman, you could say, great for the great state of Arkansas, or turn the damn jukebox on, whichever route you want to go there. But I think fans like they can buy it and it's kind of fun to joke with and stuff. And if you win, you can say it. But the product's on the field. Yeah. You're right. And you use it's more of like a player. I was actually talking to a guy that played football than to like fall on and stuff. So, and fans eat it up when they're winning, but they bash it when they lose. So we'll see what happens next year.
Yeah, got to win first. Before we go to a quick break, last thing about football before we talk basketball. Lane Kiffin, the SEC drama, where are you at with it? Do you think Juice is actually his dog?
No, dude, man, that was something.
How funny of a week was it in Oxford and Baton Rouge?
He called it his dog, but evidently he didn't own it. And it was owned by the Labrador Kennel or whatever organization. It's been a tough week or so for Ole Miss fans. And I listened to Keith Tarter go on Super Talk Mississippi and discuss the things that Lane Kiffin said that were patently false in his opinion. And just seeing the birds that were flipped off towards Kiffin if he was leaving. My co-host and boss Tommy said he hopes that this fan base is flipping off Silverfield in 5 years when he leaves, if he leaves. Because you know why? Because that means he's really good.
And he got to a better job. You want
and that's and as much as that like stinks to say, that would actually be a great situation because I know technically Petrino wasn't fired, but it was still just kind of an awkward ending. Pittman fired, Morris fired, Bielema fired, John L. Smith kind of another awkward ending. Like you just knew he wasn't going to be the head coach. So it would be nice. And Petrino's, we know, was the first one was even more awkward. He had the retirement of Houston Nutt. Then he goes to Ole Miss a week later or whatever it was. So it would be nice to actually see a guy taking a next job. Muss took like a downward job at USC, which was just kind of weird. I think he was just ready for a change. But it'd be nice to see a football coach elevated to a better job at Arkansas because that means he won some games here.
Muss probably didn't want the pressure of having to follow up a really bad season if he had a free ticket to Los Angeles. Anyway, one more quick break. Speaking of Muss, we're talking basketball, but not Muss. We're talking John Calipari's team. That's coming up next when Hog Roundup with Ty returns. My God, I am bad at that today. Back here wrapping up Shop Hog Roundup with ESPN Arkansas's Ty Richardson. Ty, let's talk some basketball. John Calipari and company get the first AP Top 10 win in the regular season under Coach Cal, taking down Louisville 89-80 in the SEC ACC Challenge. How big was this for Cal's company that they were able to take down the Cardinals at home, sellout crowd. That's what the Palace of Mid-America looks like. That's what it is. And they got the win.
Yeah, I saw your video that you put out earlier this week. I think for Arkansas basketball, really the Arkansas fan base, just how desperate they needed that. I know they announced the hiring of a new coach, but that's not the same as an on the field or on the court or on the diamond win. And they got that against a team that hadn't lost yet this season, against an up and coming coach and Pat Kelsey, and a former rival of Cal and Louisville. So it was a great win Wednesday night for Arkansas. And now you want to take that into North Little Rock tomorrow, pound Fresno State by at least 20, and then go to Dallas, Texas, and get a little revenge. I mean, they knocked you out last year. I would hope that Arkansas comes in with a vengeance in this game. And then you finish it up, basically the big non-cons against Houston, who's the defending national runner-up. So there's a lot to like about this basketball team, and there's plenty of elements to dislike. Love what I saw from Trevor Brazil, and hopefully this team will give a good effort tomorrow.
Yeah, TV was fantastic. 21 points. Darius Acuff with double-double. Malik Ewan looked really good as well in the 15 minutes that he played. Looked like the Malik Ewan that Cal thought he was getting, so that was big. And yeah, like you said, I mean, you've got a couple more marquee games before conference play. If you can go, 2-3 against these Elite Eight teams from last year, I think that's a pretty big win for this Arkansas team to get a high seed when it comes to March Madness.
Yeah, I think so too. And think about this, Evan. I know we're running short on time. St. Louis and Oklahoma City, those are 2 first-round sites. St. Louis is, I think, about 5 hours or so from Fayetteville. Oklahoma City is less than 3. Give your fans a chance to go to the games. There's a lot of other venues that are not close, like Greenville, South Carolina. That's one of the other ones I was looking at last night. Get a high seed, have good conference success, and play in a place close for Arkansas fans so they can travel. Because then the other 2 venues are Chicago and Houston. And Arkansas fans will be at both of those as well if they make it to the second weekend.
I mean, if the turnout for a Thanksgiving game against Duke told you anything, they'll come out in March and play. Ty, anything else before we go?
I think as we close out this show, the Duke-Arkansas game, highest rated in 30-plus years, regular season. Unbelievable. You got the brand of Duke and the brand of Cal and Arkansas kind of combined. What a crazy, crazy stat. And they're doing it again next year, it sounds like. Not necessarily Duke and Arkansas, but they're going back to Chicago next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Ty, that's going to do it for Hog Roundup this week. For Ty Richardson, I'm Evan Kamiko. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here very soon.